let's get started. So I think, obviously the topic that we're going to cover today is like, how do you actually persuade clients to change banks? How do you get them to actually like effectively switch, right? And I think the feedback that we've gotten a lot on Relay and with the accounting and bookkeeping community is like, hey, this product looks amazing and I want to roll it out for all of my clients. Can you teach me how to do that? And so after much deliberation, we have decided to do it. No, we finally found the time to do it. So here we are. And Justin's been kind enough to help us do that today. So I think this is gonna be fun. Let's keep it light and interactive, ask questions. Let's all learn together. So Justin, do you wanna introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Justin Prusiensky. I'm a CPA in North Carolina, Charlotte, exactly. My firm focuses on business taxes. So we are still working on taxes for 2019, unfortunately, but that's our primary focus. We're business-based almost entirely. We only do indie taxes for business owners. And we've got quite a few clients on Relay who are using it well and like using it, and we use it ourselves. So that's where we're transitioning ourselves out of Wells Fargo to that, and cannot wait to be fully out of Wells Fargo's grasp, I promise.
Yeah, I remember when you sent me an email being like, we're ready to go full Relay. And I was like, that's awesome.
Yes, yeah. That was a proud moment.
Yeah. For both of us.
Changing the guard, yes.
Wicked. Yeah, Justin was one of the first firms to actually start including kind of the core documents required for a Relay account in their like onboarding checklist, which is pretty cool. So my name is Yusuf West. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Relay. So as you know, we're like a digital bank for small business. The promise is like small business banking made easy. You might know me, maybe you don't, hopefully you don't. I've been around the accounting and bookkeeping community for a while. I love working with firms and small businesses. I just think it's a wonderful group of people. I'm excited that I get to continue to do that. So let's talk housekeeping. Everyone loves housekeeping. Number one, this webinar is being recorded. I have triple checked, quadruple checked. It is being recorded. Slides and the recording will be emailed afterwards. So it'll be sent tomorrow morning. So you'll get a copy in your inbox. If you do need to drop off, something comes up, don't worry, this is recorded. You will get a copy of it. Ask questions. I think I wrote that no need for social distancing webinar when we were back in like March or April or somewhere like that, but I thought it was kind of funny. Maybe it is still funny, but please do ask questions. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. We do have a Q&A at the end, but we'd love to be able to answer questions as and when they come up. Lastly, if we do happen to say anything, and when I say we, I really mean if Justin says something insightful or thoughtful, or when he does, please tweet it out using the hashtag #ChangingBanks.
It's a lot of pressure. I'm gonna try not to swear.
Sorry, I'll probably do this. No, I won't swear. I will not swear. This is being recorded. Okay, so let's get into it.
Cool.
Hopefully this all seems good. No questions. Awesome. There are basically three areas we're going to cover. Number one, how do you identify relevant clients and how do you uncover their banking pain points? So how do you kind of think about clients in like different groups in terms of likelihood to actually make a change? And then once you identify them, how do you actually uncover the core pain points that they face related to their banking? And so we'll go through that in detail. We'll also talk about, okay, once you've uncovered those pain points, how do you actually position the value of upgrading their banking? Going from a Wells to a Relay. Did I just say that? Maybe I did. But how do you actually position it? How do you have the conversation, and how do you handle any objections that might come up? And then lastly is, now that you've got kind of the conversation down, how do you actually roll it out for your firm and for your clients? So those are kind of the three areas we'll cover: identifying the right clients to start kind of changing banks, positioning the value, and then rollout strategy.
Cool.
All right, let's do it. Let's get into it. So identifying relevant clients. So as I just mentioned, we kind of want to think about them in like buckets, right? So it's like you have bucket A, which are perhaps the most likely to move across. And you've got bucket C, which, you're 50-50 on them. Bucket C, you're like, okay, maybe they're hopeless. I don't know if they're actually going to make the change.
Everybody segments their clients. So, I mean, in other words, you got your people that are going to benefit they're going to benefit from it first is probably a one group. One is going to benefit you the most. And then there's the benefit of they'll never see a benefit of this. So you just got to work on them harder. Right. And I mean, that's what we're talking about because
exactly.
Eventually it's going to go this direction anyway. It's just a matter of time.
Bingo. Yeah. And so the focus for today, we'll really be talking about how do you identify that like first group, like the group A. And we'll certainly talk about kind of what B and C and how you can kind of approach it. And like all the content will be applicable across all three groups. But I think the focus is like, hey, how do you identify those like great clients that you want to switch over? And then going into detail around kind of positioning it with them.
Cool. So from our perspective, once we start learning that this was an option, because we get asked about banks all the time. It's like, who do you recommend? And I will no longer say who we used to recommend because it was easiest for us to keep and maintain access. But Wells Fargo was never one to recommend it. I'll just go ahead and say that. Never. Just never. It was just, we're stuck with it for a while. So the key thing is anyone whose bank has terrible access, anything like that is a good point. Anytime you're constantly switching or asking for access back, get restored, whatever else, that happens to us all the time. So it's usually those clients we target, or any people who ever bring stuff to you, whether it's like, hey, I heard about this or anything. Anyone who's doing their own research, a slight independent streak is okay. Anyone who comes to the table with bringing you questions that you didn't have to add, like bring their attention, is generally a person who'd be more interested in this scenario for a start, because it's easy. They're like, oh, you're telling me about this is cool. Let me check it out. And then, give them a little bit of feedback on it, tell them what it is, that kind of thing. But if the client has any concept or the business owner has any concept of like what stuff is out there, you would probably target them first. They're bucket A.
Got it. Okay. And is that because they're more proactive by nature and open to trying new things that might improve their business?
Generally, and that usually tends to be a small part of anyone's practice. I mean, because if you have all progressive clients, that'd be amazing. You'd be taking over the world kind of thing. But yeah, so it's those progressive clients that are, asking about stuff, and, anyone that asks you questions that aren't the same question is probably a good place to start if you want to broaden it.
Gotcha. And then what are the types of industries that you've seen kind of success with in terms of like that ideal mindset?
I've got a nail salon. I've got a guy who builds staircases, and I've got a pretty sizable restaurant group that uses it. So, I mean, you've got all three within that. I mean, that covers a pretty big spectrum. I was going to offer it to a towing truck company, but they take in too much cash for that to be useful. So there's that. But I mean, it fits with a lot of different industries. There's the ones that probably can't use it for other reasons, but otherwise, it's generally a good fit if the client's willing to participate in the process. So, you can even segment it by someone who's not going to deposit much cash on that part, or anyone who's constantly checking their bank account too, like glued to their bank account screen, that kind of thing, which has been happening a lot more lately on that part, for sure.
And then what about like openness to like electronic payments?
Yes, we're addicted, or America at least is addicted to their checkbook. We've tried very hard to get clients off the check addiction. And this is about the easiest thing we've seen to that part. I mean, this Relay particularly makes it easier. You don't tell your client at first, like, you don't use checks anymore, but they'll use checks in a better manner to get the bill pay. And it does amazing things for everybody. Right.
But like, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It was like, some clients who are really stuck to checks as part of their process. They would be a harder sell to actually move across.
In that case, sometimes it actually depends, because if you talk to them about the time it takes to write checks, things like that, they generally come around to, so you mean there's another way. Most of them just don't understand there's a different way. It was like, is it, you'll get the questions, is it safe? How easy is it? That kind of thing. Like, prove to me it's really easy. And then you show them and it's like, you mean I can do that? Yes, you can do that too. It's amazing. And it works.
100%. So as long as there's a level of openness to actually making a change.
Yeah, that's group A.
Yeah,
that's group A.
Yeah, got it. Cool. So when we're looking at like uncovering like the pain points, like you've talked about selling this kind of, it's very much like an advisory package. We're going to help you get financial visibility and help you manage your cash. Like how do you think about that in the context of banking?
So in the past, there's no future basis for all this. It's all retroactive. We have to wait for stuff to clear the bank. But yesterday's transactions hopefully hit some point today, that kind of thing. But there's no visibility into like what actually happened. And there's that surprise rule where it's like that check from like 6 months ago finally cleared, and you're like, what? So, and of course, no one tells you that up front. So they're always like, oh, you'll figure it out when you see it, kind of thing. Or like the memo line's blank. It's like, hey, good luck finding out what that's for. You're gonna have to ask me. So, particularly with Relay, it kind of moves you into that role where you're getting them to answer those questions while you're working with them for that, and it becomes like they see you as a partner rather than like someone who just does my taxes or however else they think of you. They start thinking more in the current term than the you'll deal with it term.
Right. And so before you've implemented Relay with that client and helped them kind of make that shift, like how did you kind of get them there where they felt that pain point around their financial position? Was it kind of evident because coronavirus was happening and the world got crazy? Like how did you approach it?
Heavy sarcasm, a little heavy sarcasm was how the approach was. But usually it's like, well, usually you can blame the ether, where it's like, well, we have to wait for these things to be done. We have to wait for all these things to clear. Like, can you give us your check stubs? Like, what hasn't cleared? I mean, you can ask the question so the client understands the things that you require to get your job done that is dependent upon them. And they see that, well, is there some way I can get this to you faster? And then it's like, well, yes, there is. You start, as long as you can lead them to that path, they start and get them to ask the question, even if you have to like really drag them through the water to get them to answer that, it helps.
Yeah. And they're already at this point sold on the promise of getting financial visibility, right? And so it's really just like pulling on the thread of, what bills do you have outstanding? What's being paid? Do you know if your next check will actually be able to clear?
The best thing to ask though is, especially if there's multiple check writers within an organization, like, do you know what they wrote last week? You ask that question and they're going to lie to you and say they do, but then you're going to see what they say and like they don't. And and that's the thing that always kills them. Like, or is sales tax coming up the same week as payroll? Can you manage that? Does it have to be checks to manage it? Yeah. Those are things that make people think about, well, is there a better way?
Gotcha. And so like in that world, like prior to kind of making a change, they're effectively relying on their bank balance and believing that is their financial position, but it definitely isn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone's writing payroll checks on Friday and like basically give them out at like 4:00 in the afternoon so that, they're clearing on Monday. So, because that's when their weekend deposits hit Monday morning. So, that's problematic. So once you explain that you don't have to do that anymore, there's better ways. And especially when it's like, well, it doesn't require that much of a change that actually requires them to do more. It requires them to do less, actually.
Right.
A little bit of upkeep, a little bit of maintenance on some other things, and then we can control more of the process for them so that they feel more comfortable that way.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's really a process of, number one, them being bought in on like, hey, I want financial visibility. I want to understand how my business is actually being run. And then as you're on that journey to get there, because it is a journey, right? No client shows up with perfectly done books, unfortunately.
We've got a few, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, but for the most part, maybe those are the easier ones to have the conversation with because they know the value. But it's a process of kind of being like, hey, what are the pieces here that are making it hard for us and yourselves to actually get that financial visibility?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the ability to participate in the process too, though. I mean, like, because like generally speaking, we only have read-only access for our traditional banking clients. We prefer it that way because otherwise we have to be check signers, the whole thing. So.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And really the goal here is to get to a point where they understand that the goal is actually eliminating kind of the mismatch between revenue and expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, like the promise the accounting industry has had for, last 5 years, or at least the cloud accounting industry has had for the last 5 years, is like real-time financials.
That's such a promise.
Right. And it is hard to deliver. And so perhaps a more integrated solution would get you there.
Yes. Yeah. This is about as close as it gets right now.
Right. Okay, so that's one way to take it. It's like, let's just go on the financial visibility side. Let's sell you the whole package, and we can go from there. We just got a Q&A. Sorry, why is this not popping up for me? I apologize.
Okay, so David's asking about checks. So the bill pay is really the bill pay function is what Relay is going to offer, David, not traditional checks whatsoever. So you're not going to be printing checks or anything like that. You're going to replace physical checks with ACH, wires if needed, and bill pay checks. The benefit of the bill pay checks are that you're going to get the check stays in the bank account as showing like pending. So it's not a clearing account. So that's a huge difference from like most things where it siphons the money right away into a clearing account and then it clears later at a future time. This bill pay is really designed for visibility so that the check, so let's say you use a bill pay check instead of, an ACH, it's going to take some time to clear whatever that takes, but it shows up in your account as pending. I think to answer that one, let's see, clients, banks.
Yeah. So let's, as we go to kind of the solution
Sure.
part, let's go, let's go through some of these questions because they're great questions. And Scott, I saw your point that we don't promise real-time financials. We do provide daily, weekly, and monthly accounting services. And we do want it to be as automated as possible. Yes, I think same, but different. I think that's the narrative there. So yeah, like when it comes to bill pay, I think, in the industry just generally, like there's a lot of people who have had experience selling like a bill.com or a Veeam or what have you. And so perhaps these are more common questions, but like, to us, it seems like everyone uses those solutions, but in practice, like no one does effectively. Right.
And not enough of my clients use it. If they did, it'd be better for us.
Yeah. And so what are the questions you ask? Like, how do you know that these are actually good questions to ask? I guess is even like a better way to look at it.
Yeah. So starting with the toughest one has been like someone who has to walk away with a check is usually the hardest one. So like vendors, like anything restaurant or service, a lot of cases, like fast retail, stuff like that, where your vendor is walking away with a check. Well, that check could be cashed anywhere from 48, 24, like that hour, or anywhere from like a week later. And most clients think that that's the only way they can get something paid. So like, I can't bill pay that person. Well, that may not entirely be true if you can establish some kind of credit with them that you can bill pay them and the payments are made, or as like you can use a debit card for that stuff. So they have that on account, but you'll see what the money is and limits. So there's a ton of options for that. But for the most part, if they're using bill pay already for their bank, it's cost them an arm and a leg, and it immediately siphons the money out of their account. So there's really no benefit for the bill pay except for the fact that it's going somewhere. Whereas the bill pay in this one is easier, like so easy a client can do it. Right. And it also is, it doesn't draft through a clearing account. So it stays in the account, and you can see that you can basically witness the transaction from start to finish. Right. as part of the thing. So it's so much, it's intended the way you want a bill pay system to be, where you still have that float for the cash on there, but you can actually track the payment.
Gotcha. Okay. So basically you're looking at, okay, what is the process that exists today, and identifying whether they fall into kind of a, they have an existing bill pay solution, in which case that's a different way to think about the problem set. And then if they don't, which is, as you said, it's like not enough of my clients actually do that. It's like, how much time are they actually spending, settling up with the vendors? Do they actually have proper financial controls in place? Can they actually negotiate better terms with their vendors? And do they have like auditability around the bills? Is that basically?
Most bill pay on the banking side is like bare bones. So there's nothing that links stuff for the payment. Maybe they're putting in memo information on there, maybe not. But it's also really limited though, because like I can't go in and help someone or find something out about bill pay without using their login, which is like, no, that's bad. So the benefit of something like Relay is that there's controls on there as far as like rights, user rights. But so like you can put stuff together and the client approves it, and it's much easier for them to just click approve than it is for them to have to set everything up and mess with everything. Yes, there's plenty of marketing collateral to whoever just asked the Q&A.
There is some. We are trying to get better at delivering like good marketing collateral. Certainly, I think this is part of the process that we're going through. So it sounds like kind of financial visibility is really the core piece, and it's like how do you build tools or functions around that, and the kind of the pain points around financial visibility. You could try and bundle it all together and say, hey, use Relay for everything. But for other clients, it might make more sense to start them off slow, right? And start them off with like bill pay as using Relay as a complement to their existing banking and doing it that way. And then for employee expenses, like how do you think about that? When does it actually make sense?
Sure.
What are the pain points that you think about?
All right. So the best example is we have a client who owns or is a pretty big restaurant group. And there's a bunch of different check signers and different debit card holders within the organization. And we'll call the head chef, we'll call him Howie or Howard. Howard apparently cannot live within a budget to save his life. So his debit and check card transactions are like willy-nilly over the place. And there's an unwillingness to like make him conform to the standards of the organization. So he gets away with it because he's also head chef. So the idea is that you can actually put Relay in place where you put a limit on debit card, you give him only that debit card, and you can't issue checks. You cut out his ability to issue checks, and all of a sudden, even Howie's on a budget, and his expenses are taken care of because it's limited in full visibility on the whole thing. So you can slide the limit up, down. You can tell him, hey, if you don't use it all, you get to keep some, whatever else the case might be, and it motivates. It's a big motivating factor in that, but it's just so much easier to make that work. Whereas you go through customer service to get a new debit card issued. It takes 7-8 weeks to come in the mail. Someone else intercepts it. I mean, there's all those kind of problems. So this is by far the easiest process to get a new bank account and debit card set up, hands down, for an employee.
Got it.
And controller access.
Yeah. And all of this comes back to that idea of like eliminating the mismatch, right? And there not being any surprises, and there actually being like proper financial controls built in for the business, right?
Yes.
Howard, he's got to eat, but you also have to manage your risk as a business owner.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. I know there are a bunch of great questions sitting in the Q&A. We are going to get to them.
So the other one is the moving banks, the old bank. We're going to come up with that later, or we'll be talking about that soon.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, how do you, like we've talked about, okay, how do you actually think about framing the conversation with the client? And as with anything, it's always like a journey and kind of understanding what are the pain points, seeing their openness to it. But once you kind of feel like, okay, I see my opening, I see my lane for this particular client, like how do you actually communicate that value? And so we're going to follow that through on the like financial visibility, the bill pay, the employee expenses.
Okay.
Yeah. Sweet. So Justin, how do you do it? How do you do it?
So we've been asked over the years a lot of times, like, do you recommend a bank? And we always hesitated because we used what was easy for us for access, but it's so much easier now that we actually have a bank that we have positive feelings for, at least on that part. And it makes our life and the client's life easier. It's simple and easy to use. I mean, you start with those things where, especially you can use the F word free. In other words, there's no real cost to you on this part. They're not going to fee out the wazoo. There's no marketing that goes with it, all that stuff. I mean, they're not trying to extract every dollar and cent out of you, the business owner. So that's a huge change from traditional banks where there's the never-ending mail and everything. And I don't think you're ever going to send mail out to us, right?
No, we will not send you mail. It is not like a debit card or something useful.
So like if the person's environmentally friendly, you can tell them that, switch to Relay and save trees. I mean, there's one there. I mean, there's plenty of angles of attack for that, but realistically, if it's the first time you can actually say like, hey, this is a bank recommend, there's no financial interest in it for me, but it does help you and me help you.
Right. Well, like what if the attitude of the business owner is like, look, it's a bank. Like, why should I care about this? Like, what's the difference between Wells Fargo? What's the difference between Bank of America? Like, really?
Sure. And then I'd say whole time, customer service, branch manager changes, and the fact that the traditional bank relationship is basically shot. So no one gets anything from the bank anymore. There's no service. There's no anything else. So if you're going to go for something, in other words, if you need the service and anything like that, you're better off with everything you can do yourself. on that part. So you don't have
Right.
to deal with the bank for that stuff. And not to say their customer support is not awesome, because it is for Relay, but it's something we don't have to use as much as with a traditional bank, because we can do more ourselves.
Gotcha. But like, how do you actually reframe that conversation? Right? 'Cause it's like the way people look at a bank account is it's like, it's a place that I put my money, and then it sort of works with the stuff that I have, but it doesn't really. And I expect it to be a bad experience.
So this is just something they don't, so it ends up being something that they think about, but they don't have to continue thinking about or worry about in that regard. Like getting to the bank and all those other things. All of the traditional, let's say holds on stuff on a bank, basically go away. So in other words, it's a way to think about banking as like almost like an app you like, rather than something you like, rather than something you have to use or do. It's something you actually have something positive to say about, because it works for you instead of making you work for it.
Okay. And what does it mean, like, that it works for you? Like,
it's like the first interface and everything else that's nice and clean, so that they're not bombarded with stuff. There's not trying to sell you all this other crap to go with it. It's really functional. It's really built to be functional entirely. So it's the bank. It takes care of all your banking, and it helps with accounting and all that stuff. I mean,
sure. I think the theme that I was trying to get to is like, traditional banks are quite siloed. And yeah, like, what if a bank could actually help you collaborate on your finances? Yeah. And so, like, how do you, once you've kind of reframed it and kind of had the conversation around like, okay, I know how you feel about traditional banks, but this is actually different, and this is going to enable us to deliver that financial visibility. How do you make it tangible for the client?
So in other words, the easiest way to really show them like the length, the shortening time from when they get information. So instead of client saying, so we used to get the calls like, hey, has this check cleared? And then you have to find a negative, perhaps, like you're searching needle in a haystack. Like, did you give them the right check number, all that stuff? Whereas then they ask you and it's like, yeah, no, it hasn't cleared yet. It's still pending. You can tell them that because the bill pay part is there. That's tangible, and that's easily identifiable the moment they start using it.
Gotcha. Okay. And like, when they're calling you like that, what's the reason that they're asking about like a check? Like what's going on in their world?
Probably someone's asking about it. Hopefully it's not them wondering, but it's usually someone asking, hey, I haven't received that check yet. When did you send that? Or worse is like, hey, I'm looking for a check that I don't know if it's cleared or not. And then like, you don't even know what your time frame is for that, because they can't tell you anything about the check. Okay. I think it was for like $2,000, and that could be anywhere from like $1,000 to like $4,000 for a search.
Right. Right. And when you're in the context of like, you're communicating the value of like delivering financial visibility around changing banks, like how do you make that real? Like, I'm a business owner. I've never heard of Relay, right? Like I probably haven't. I've heard of Wells Fargo.
Right.
Yeah.
The easiest thing is it's always with you. It's on your phone. It's, it's in the cloud. It doesn't really go away. They're not going to have off days, stuff like that. The banking holidays and all that stuff doesn't apply. I mean, all the benefits of being like a 24/7 bank are there for that. That's real and that's tangible. Especially the fact that it's accessible too. In other words, you don't have to drive anywhere to go places. If you need something to get done, there's many ways to get it done. And that our clients, because like none of our clients like having to go to the bank. And so if I tell them you never have to go to the bank again, they're like, really? Yeah. I mean, you could find like a gas station ATM if you really needed to, but that's a huge thing. Like, I don't have to go to the bank anymore. No, everything being taken care of without having to go to the bank.
Gotcha. And so what that's really enabling is like a kind of a real-time understanding of your like available funds, right? And actually having everything like connected and in one place.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that notion of like collaboration, kind of the whole goal of all of this, right, is helping business owners get ahead of the curve. And tools that can do that are really valuable.
It's time savings on both sides, mine and theirs.
Yeah. Bingo. So let's talk bill pay. Okay. So you found a client, they have a pain point around bill pay. The bills are all over the place. They don't know what their cash position is. There's a total mismatch. between the revenue coming in and stuff going out, and it's hard, right? It's hard to be a small business owner. Cash flow is tight in normal times, let alone the times that we have today. And so, like, how do you position it? What's the conversation you've had with clients?
So one of the first ones is you can have multiple bank accounts within the same relay login, so that you can actually separate accounts for different purposes, and it's so easy to transfer between them that it's like second nature. So you can actually create a financial system for the client that they can actually manage things while having a big, like, bird's eye view and a detailed view at the same time, virtually like side by side. And it makes a huge difference when you say, like, instead of giving your employees all checkbooks, you can give debit cards that have limits within accounts. And then, every week money's transferred over for those things, or they spend from that account. And it makes a huge difference for how the employees spend that too. Because all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's my budget. I've met it by Tuesday. What's going on? Drives a conversation like crazy for that. Especially when you can just show people there's a better way than checks.
Right.
That's part of it.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, like, what are some of the benefits of kind of switching off checks or using more of a digital option for issuing checks?
They're huge. First of all, there's like a lot less fraud. We're not worried about, checks that are out there, the clearing, stuff like that, or there's no visibility control over that. Particularly when that something sneaky shows up, like, hey, how did this 1,000 level check clear in September when we're in 5,000 level, that kind of stuff. But it also kind of gives the client a lot more comfort knowing that these checks are the ones that have been issued, or they can stack the deck, issue a bunch of checks at once. They can do bill pay runs, stuff like that, where they're not just issuing checks like crazy, like candy.
Right. And so basically the fact that Relay like integrates into your accounting system, that it actually has like approval rules, so who's actually approved a bill to go out, and also like whoever cut that check, you can actually see the name of the person associated with that transaction. Really valuable in terms of getting them that understanding and feeling the safety, right?
Yep, and it's a clean interface. I mean, you're not bombarded with all kinds of other options and stuff. I mean, it's very simple. A couple pieces of information, boom, ready to rock and roll, checks issued, done for bill pay.
Got it. Okay. So David asked, and so I just want to get to so some of the questions here. So David asked, can a Relay account number and routing number be used to like order check stock? And just for the off cases where someone actually needs a physical handwritten check. So that isn't available today. We are working with our partner bank to actually be able to offer like a virtual checkbook, so you could actually print off checks and use them as needed. So that's the hope, is so that when you go into Relay and say, hey, I want to pay someone by a check, you have the option of either having it mailed out on your behalf, or you can have it available instantly and you can email it or print it off, whatever you feel comfortable with.
But let me say that we found that most clients, when they do that, they move away from the physical check right then, because usually that's a problem if someone needs a check issued at the right then. So you try and address those issues as best you can beforehand, or like, listen, you can take a debit or you can take an ACH. And most people would rather take the ACH knowing it's going to them than they would walk away with a check.
Gotcha. Like, and when you say it's a problem that someone needs to write a check, what are those scenarios that you're talking about?
Maybe someone missed the bill, forgot something like that, or someone walked in for something. I mean, there's a few scenarios, but for the most part, in 2020, those should be able to be mitigated without having to walk away with a check to pay someone.
Right.
So, I mean, that'll come up less and less as time goes by.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. And one of the other things that's, as you can see, like, we have this integration into Xero and QuickBooks Online to automatically import bills or approval workflows. And then what's coming on top is the ability to actually request payment details from payees. So that actually can remove a lot of the need for checks because you can just say, hey, Jane Smith, I would like to pay you. Please hit this link and add your payment details. And that'll be the fastest way for me to actually get money into your account.
Yeah.
Cool.
It moves it more toward controlled disbursements. That's really where it looks like. It's the things they teach you in the very beginning of accounting that everyone aspires to, that you can actually now do.
Right. Okay, cool. So let's talk expense management. How do you, like, what's the conversation you had with that restaurant? Was it primarily about Howard? Was there other people involved?
Yeah, there's a few people. So what we did was we basically replaced the multiple checkbooks with multiple debit cards, and everyone got issued their own debit card for their specific purpose. And it changed the game pretty dramatically on that part. So, there's no more waiting for checks to clear, or did this go there? Did you pay this? That kind of thing. And it cut down on a lot of this stuff there's just writing checks for. Vendors would start accumulating bills, pay them all at once. They became comfortable with the idea. And they also once the limit got hit, if they have $500 to spend that week and it's gone on Tuesday and there's no checkbook, they're out of that's the intention. You spent it, you're done. And it prevented budget blowing like crazy. And then all of a sudden they started having, so all of a sudden within like a month or so, they started having money left over on the debit cards because they knew, it definitely changes it. Because when you write a check, it's definitely someone else's money. But when you run the debit card and it comes up declined or there's no funds, that's a bigger deal.
Right.
So.
Gotcha. And so there's basically like kind of a control in place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you can blame, and it allows the client in some cases to like maintain some like separation from like being the bad guy. It's like, well, the account, like you can blame the accountant that way because it's like a conversation that you loop them in and it's like, well, I'm sorry, that was the budget this week, or,
Right.
And they get the state and maintain the relationship with the employee and that, but they also don't have to be the bad guy for like, chasing someone out for, why'd you write that check? So.
Got it. Cool. So really it allows you to safely give access to funds to your team without cash flow surprises.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. And you can distribute responsibility a little bit more evenly that way too.
Right. Got it. And then I know someone was asking about how do you handle clients? And I think this client's actually a really good example. How do you handle clients with cash deposits, right? So a restaurant certainly gets cash. Mm-hmm. Relay doesn't offer cash deposits. How does that work?
There's two ways. So most of our clients still have another bank account that they use. And so most of my clients, particularly the ones we have using Relay, don't need to make cash deposits because if they do get a lot of cash, for example, they get paid in cash, they're using that for tips, generally speaking. So it goes right. I mean, it literally goes right out the door that night, that day. Or we've got some clients that actually, I do have one client that puts cash into his Wells Fargo account and then transfers it to Relay with an ACH pull. So it doesn't cost them anything but a little bit of time to do that. And it happens more and more infrequently too, because people are paying less with cash. So if someone's going to be constantly making cash deposits, that's a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
But it could still work too, though, because you use the old bank to put the cash in for that and then get everything else transferred to Relay. And it works pretty nicely. I mean, it's a great complementary bank account. Mm-hmm. And that gradually becomes of more and more importance the more functional it gets.
Got it. Cool. And then we talked about like what are kind of the trigger points, especially now, that'll help you kind of seal the deal.
So one of the things that we lived in terror for was like 2000. Like there's been major interruptions for banking over the years for online banking, and that has been absolutely terrible for us. I mean, like there was a period of time when Wells Fargo bank feeds and Bank of America feeds wouldn't work. There's nothing that could be done. We had, constant issues, and we're always kind of in fear of those things happening again because, it, knock on wood, it's been going nice. It's been nice and consistent, but it's not perfect. So when a client changes their password or something happens to the bank, you lose access to everything that you depend on. So for example, if you're not all the way caught up with their banking stuff and everything else, you then have to tell the client that you're behind or whatever else, or for whatever reason, you don't have access to these things, whatever. Relay is not like that. It's direct feed for these things too. So you're not relying on that same, you're not relying on the goodwill of the bank to keep that thing going and connected. And that is a huge thing for stability. So, that's a selling point in itself. It's like, remember all those times last year I had to ask you about getting access to your bank account? We can avoid that in the future if we do this way. That is in other words, you'll hear me asking you to do stuff less. That's a huge, huge selling point for clients. Unless I have to ask them to do for me, the better
Right.
off the relationship is.
100%. And then what about like kind of we've seen a good amount of this as well, is people opening up Relay accounts purely for PPP loans and
Yeah.
disaster loans. So what's the narrative there?
All right, so it's like 2 clicks to get a new account out of that. So in other words, you can have up to 10 accounts. I mean, transfer accounts, money between each account like crazy. It's you can't do that anywhere else as far as I can tell. So everyone else is like, I have to go to the bank to open a new account for my PPP, and they're calling me from the bank like, hey, they're asking me if I need this stuff, and there's what they're going to charge me a month for this bank account, and like a $30 a month fee sucks for a client that's just holding like 50 grand in an account for not really sure what they're going to use it for. Plus, they're going to charge them every time they transfer in and out of those accounts. I mean, there's any untoward number of horrible things that you get stuck with when you have a traditional bank and have to open new accounts. It's literally a few clicks and you have a new account. Boom, account routing, good to go. Funds moved in minutes. I mean, that's amazing. You have full control over the whole thing. And if, depending on your access for collaboration, you can help the client do it. You can do it for the client without having to be a check signer. That's a huge deal.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we're starting to, I saw we have so many great questions. Almost kind of think we should have done this as like a Q&A. It's awesome. So I think I'm gonna jump on this one. So the positioning really, like from what you've articulated, is start with Relay as like a compliment. And really it's like, hey, here's the value I'm gonna help deliver to your business and you as like a small business owner. And it's really not about like, you can maintain your Wells Fargo account, you can maintain your Bank of America account, and really it's to treat switching as like a 4-letter word, right? That's the big thing. And I think your point about like, people have this fear about opening a new account or whatever because there are fees typically attached. And with Relay, it's like no fees, there's no monthly fees, you just get started. And I think that kind of communication really helps. It makes them comfortable. It's like, hey, if Relay sucks, I don't have to use it, right?
Yep. So the easy thing for us is like, we've had a couple of clients use them for just 1 or 2 things, and then it sits dormant for a while, and they're like, hey, I need to use this again, and we bring it back up. You know, it's nice to have that ability to have that account available for that. So like when the client needs something to get done, because I can't tell how many times clients like, I need this done, or they want that concierge level service, and you can't do that with their banking, with traditional banking. It's not possible. You have to be a check signer. You have to go through these hoops, give DNA, name your first child after him, whatever. That's, you know, you haven't made me do any of those things yet, Yusuf. It's been nice. So
I've just been waiting.
I'm holding my breath.
And then, yeah. And so really what you're describing is like really focusing on like a use case to get them started with. And, you know, when they say, well, you know, I don't want to open another bank account or whatever, it's like, well, we want to solve this payables issue. We want to help you manage your cash. We want to help you manage your expenses. This is how we do it. It's just like standardizing on any other piece of like back office software effectively.
And you actually, so for new clients too, that's harder for existing clients than for new clients. For a new client that wants to work with you or your firm, you basically say, this is the platform we use, and this is how we do these things, and this is how it works. And it's part of the standard package. And it's like, it's the first time you can actually say, or you get a new client, say, who just started a business. That's gonna be happening a lot now coming up, I'm sure. It's gonna be those things like, how do I get started? Well, here's the whole package. Here's what you need.
Right.
Whatever your accounting platform is, here's your bank, this is what you need. You got payroll, boom. And then you can set up everything for them in which no one else can do. You can't go into a bank. You cannot go into another bank and say, I want to set a bank account up for somebody. Can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's a huge deal. You can actually do stuff for people remotely.
Amazing. So security.
You know, you can do that, right?
Can't do that. Well, it's because you can't actually open the full account or transact in it.
Yeah.
Without that person that you've provided their information, without them actually confirming their details. So I know we got a question specifically on security, because I think one person said, hey, I have a client who I think would actually be great for this, but you know, they've had some issues with fraud, identity theft, phishing, and they make regular payments to China. Maximum safety required. So here are the things to share. One is The financial institution behind Relay is Evolve Bank and Trust. They're like an almost 100-year-old bank, $500 million in assets, and all the accounts that Relay offers are underneath Evolve Bank and Trust accounts, and that's how we're able to offer like FDIC insurance up to 250K, which is awesome. So you're safe. If you ever have any issues, you have a question, you have a suggestion, whatever, we are here for you. People love our customer service. That is like the biggest thing that we hear often from business owners. It's like, oh, a bank that actually like cares about me and will work with me to solve any issues. And if stuff comes up, because stuff does come up, I can get on the phone, I can talk to a human being, and they go to work for me, which is like, I got to tell you, as someone who has done a lot of marketing in my life, it's like such a wonderful feeling that people feel that way about our brand and our company. And then we have real two-factor authentication. So it's not just like SMS codes. So if you use like Google Authenticator, LastPass, Authy, we basically generate one-time passwords.
I'm answering some of these live. I mean, via text.
Okay. And we'll sorry, I don't know if my internet's doing okay here. And so it makes it really easy to actually like create the level of security around identity theft or any concerns there. So that really helps. And then we also have the benefit of MasterCard zero liability policy. So basically, if there's an unauthorized charge on your Relay card, as long as you report it inside of like 5 business days, number one, we'll go to bat for you and make sure that a dispute is filed and we get your cash back. And 2, we'll actually provide a provisional credit for the amount that you're disputing, so you won't be impacted from a cash flow perspective. So that makes it a lot easier to actually manage. Perfect. And then rollout strategy. So how do you do it?
So we started first with us because it was the easiest way to set it up and test it, because that's what we do for all our clients. With whatever software we're working with, we test it first. So at least we figure out how it can break, because our clients will inevitably try and break it. And once we have a pretty good understanding of it, we start asking some of our more forward-thinking clients, like, hey, are you interested in this? We'll help you set it up, that kind of stuff. But the easy part though is that you can actually set it up so that they approve everything, but you can get it set up for them so that they don't have to do all the heavy lifting. That's the crazy easy part. So that, you overcome the most objectives, like, well, I don't want to have to go do that. You don't. I'll set it up for you. You just got to start using it. And then lo and behold, you'll see the emails come through saying, hey, so-and-so funded the account. And that's where it starts. I mean, it doesn't take long. So, I mean, you get the full visibility on stuff when they start using it, which is incredible. And then, whatever email platform you're using, you can tag it and sort your information that way. So you know what's going on when it's going on without having to be in it. I mean, that's a huge thing. So, start with using it yourself. Because like I said, there's no cost, there's no switching or any of that. You just start using it, as little or as much as you want, and figure out how it works, and then figure out how it apply to your clients' situations, because for the most part, you're going to have to kind of fit them toward it. They're not gonna naturally just, oh, this is da, 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 because chances are they're used to whatever way we're working from.
Right.
But when bill pay becomes easy, when sending ACHs and payments and using a debit card is like somehow second nature, they're like, whoa, I don't remember how it was. And like, yeah, I have this other bank account, but I can't remember who it's with. Do you still have that information? I mean, we've heard that. So.
Right. Cool. All right. So test it out for yourself, see how it works, try and break it.
Yep.
Find 3 test clients, look at the characteristics. You'll get these slides tomorrow, and basically sell them on like a concierge service setup and say, hey, here's the value. We're focused on financial visibility. We're focused on bill pay. We're focused on business spending visibility, and get them going.
It won't take much of your time to do it either.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to quickly brush over this because I think we do have a lot of questions, and I want to leave the time. So just rollout strategy. So you start with their core use case that we just talked about, build a checklist for whatever it is. So, just in the same way that if you're transferring someone to bill.com, what are those bills that are going to need to be paid in bill.com? Think about that exact same kind of concept in the context of Relay, just to make it straightforward. And then it's funny, on this last bullet, I kind of wrote, do as much of the work for them as you can. And Justin was like, no, they need to do some of the work.
Yeah, don't promise that. It's a
yeah,
partnership.
bingo. So definitely like make it a joint effort, and maybe make it a little easier for them at the same time. Um, cool. Anything you would add to that, Justin?
Uh,
Ooh, sorry. I think you're muted. I'm, I can't hear you.
on.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we're
Yeah.
back.
I was gonna say, something. It's one of the few things you want to be more persistent on for clients. In other words, it's not something that you brush. Like the first answer is no. I was like, bring it back up because it'll make a difference. Because in other words, you got to emphasize the part where it's no switching costs and it's free, and like this will benefit the two of us, or just say it mostly you, but that part. But that I found persistence actually is helpful in this case because it is like everyone benefits from the time savings at a minimum for this, and that ends up being a huge deal for the two of you.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. All right. So just a 10 seconds on Relay. I think most of you actually, you've signed up for the product. So I think but it's business banking made easy. You can actually access clients banking from the Relay partner portal. You get to enjoy reliable bank feeds. So it's API to API, as Justin has mentioned. You actually get enriched data, so it's actually easier to do the bookkeeping.
Yes.
And you really get to like empower your clients with financial visibility, which was really the core theme of today. So if you want to sign up, go to relayfi.com/partners. Send us an email. You can reach out to us, support@relayfi.com, or send me an email, Yusef, YOSEPH@relayfi.com. We're super responsive. We care. And yeah. So let's do Q&A. Oh my God, so many questions. I'm so excited. In the early days of HubDoc, I'd have to fake questions. Like no word of a joke. I would have to come up like, Diana from, Ohio is asking this.
Anonymous is really big today, but
yeah.
All right, so I'll start with the first one is one issue that happens with clients moving banks. They leave the old bank account open and can use it, even then ask to close it. Yes. So what will happen is the more you can you will not be able to avoid that, but you will never complain about having to use Relay for reconciling purposes. So that if you can get them to move more toward Relay and have the old bank account will sit mostly dormant after a period of time. Because no one will want to use that because it ends up being a pain. It gets to the point after using Relay for even a short amount of time, it gets to the point where you don't want to use other banks because they suck, and it's time consuming and everything else. So you won't have that happen as much with. I mean, it's still obviously it's the client. You're depending on the client to do what they say they're supposed to do, or you listening to you. But generally speaking, the more they use Relay, the less likely they are to continue using the old bank because it just is that easy. It's one of the few ones that is easy to use.
Yeah, and I think one of the other, I kind of just I was thinking about a story that I can't remember who told me this, but I think it was a QuickBooks advisor. They would lock the client's books, and the client would try and go in and change it, and they'd be like, "Hey, what's the password to this?" And the advisor's response was, "Well, the cost to get that password is about $5,000. Do you want to pay?" And I thought that was like, I mean, amazingly aggressive, but awesome, right?
When we do that, we say the password for us is keep out.
Right.
Keep out. And like we make them type it in all caps.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's their books. So it's not like we're, but yeah, we tried that. This will help though.
Yeah. And so I think the point there is, okay, if you're transitioning someone to Relay from an existing financial institution, yes, it'll take some time, and but what you'll experience on the Relay side will be just so much easier than anything you're used to on the banking side from a reconciliation perspective. And the client will just organically switch across, certainly.
Yeah.
But if you're finding that, and you mentioned it here, that you're repeatedly asking them to close it and they're just not doing it, maybe kind of say, hey, this is taking us extra time that really is kind of out of scope here, and maybe charge for it, right?
Yep.
And if they charge for it, if you charge for it and they're willing to pay for it, maybe it's totally worth it.
Yep.
But that might be a strategy.
I'm gonna let you take the rewards question.
Okay. Do we plan to offer rewards? I don't like all these anonymous attendee questions. I wish I knew who was asking. I got to admit. Do we plan to offer rewards? Credit card points, totally fair. I think eventually we will. It's not something we'll likely do in the next 12 months. This is just the truth. If you find that Relay is more valuable to you as like just a bank account with maybe some bill pay on top, and you use a Divvy or a Ramp or a Brex on with it, cool. That's awesome. We don't really have an opinion on whether you should use the cards or not. We really just want to deliver great banking in whatever way makes sense for the small business. So yes, in our plans, but not necessarily something we're doing in the short term.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next is marketing collateral. So you think you answered that one?
Yeah. Yeah. So we are pulling that together at present just to make this easier. And this webinar, I think, is going to go a long way to pulling some materials together to make this really easy for you, anonymous attendee. And I hope the feedback that we get on it is good. All right, Justin.
All right. So do I have clients? Yeah, for cash deposits, I have a couple clients that do that. Most of them have the other bank account open for that express purpose if they want to use that. And then alternatively, I have some clients that just convert cash to like cashier's checks or whatever, and then mobile deposit them in. So, I mean, it's a small fee, and most of the time it's no big deal for that part. Otherwise, if cash deposits are really a thing, like if they're that critical to things, maybe that's not the best option for that part, for Relay. I can just tell you, because I've got some tow truck drivers that never use it. They just won't. They just can't. They pay you exclusively in cash, apparently. So, yeah.
Angela's asking, does the bank feed work for QB desktop? It doesn't, but we do have CSV and OFX files that you can upload into desktop.
Who are still using QB desktop, though?
Lots of people.
That is troubling.
There are lots of folks, lots of reasons to do that. So Angela's asking, how might a nonprofit depositing cash gifts from an occasional live event deal with it? So I think, like coming back to your point around cash, really having that kind of traditional bank there to handle any cash and then just moving the funds across. It's really easy. You transfer it inside of one business day, and it doesn't feel like you're missing out on cash flow or there's not a long spread. Would that be accurate, Justin?
Yeah. If worse comes to worse, you put it in the cash. If worse comes to worse, the fees for getting it converted to a financial instrument that will go in there is pretty easy. So like if it was that important, you lose a small portion of it to go to that, no big deal.
Okay, perfect. All right. Someone's asking about recurring bill pay. Recurring and scheduled payments are coming soon. So we'll have those live in, I would say, the next 45 days.
But you can still do that now. You can't. It's not 100% automatic, but it's really easy to do that if you have an automatic bill set up in QuickBooks Online or Xero, to have that constantly recur that you can click off. So it's real close to automatic now, as long as it's set up, and you can almost achieve that where you can approve them ahead of time with dates. Like you do a month at a clip right now, but it's not truly automatic, but it's pretty damn close already. You can work around it. We do.
And so we are working on it as well. So hopefully we can get past the workaround soon. ETA for use in Canada yet? It's either going to be later this year or early next. We're still kind of working it through. Coronavirus obviously changed everything for everyone. I'm in Toronto. I wish we were live in Canada. That'd be awesome. Do you use OAuth with your QB integration? Yes. It's really easy. You just connect through Relay just as you would for HubDoc or ReceiptBank or whatever else you would use. It's really straightforward. Do you plan to accept ACH collections from clients? As in being able to pull funds from clients' bank accounts? I'm guessing that's what that means.
Yeah.
Justin, would you interpret it that way? Yes, Wade has just confirmed that yes, that is the case. Yes, that is part of our plan. As we kind of switch from focusing on payables solely to adding in more receivables and income functions, that is something that we will look at. So definitely,
I'm excited by that. That's good news.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, as with anyone, it's like, hey, the more feedback we get on something, the more we listen. So definitely treat us like your favorite client, and repeat the message. And Nicole, thank you for coming forward as the anonymous person. It's great to hear from you. Glad you're here, and hope you're well. Okay, Chad, if you send an ACH to someone by mistake, wrong account, etc., how do you go about recalling this? So this is where great customer service comes in.
I've used it. I've done this because I sent, I mistyped my own account number in there. It was going to me, and we got it straightened out in no time with customer service. I mean, they're fantastic. If people usually describe their customer service as being empowered, and then when you find out what that's like, you're like, that's not the right word for it. Actually, Relays people are actually empowered and they get it done. So, and I don't think we get any special favors because like I'm not that important, but you always feel like it. It's pretty nice.
That's the goal. That's the promise. So yeah, we basically just do either try and cancel the transaction before it goes out if we can, or two, if the funds have already gone out and settled, we will work with our partner bank to initiate a formal recall, and we've done that, and it's pretty straightforward to get the funds back. So
yeah, and they don't close cases either. So if something's like we've had other platforms and software we use, like they'll close like your support case, and they're like, well, it's not over. It stays open until it's done, which is nice. I can tell you that is a huge benefit. Where it's like, it's not done. Why'd you close it? It's still open. We're working on it. It's nice.
Yeah. Angela says, so many people. I tend to agree. It's awesome. So great. And Ian shares that, love this webinar. After using Relay with my firm for several months, I want to start using Relay with all my new clients and include it in my package. Love it. And his question is, are cash deposits and checks the only things Relay cannot do? Yes, so we do have bill pay checks, but yeah, like the formal checkbook, like a piece of paper, not something we do today. Trying to get to a point where we can have like a virtual checkbook where you can print off checks. But yeah, that is.
I actively discourage you guys from doing that though, because that will make our life harder. Because then they're like, can you print that check for me? And it's be like, no, I'm not printing that check for you. So, while I appreciate that, like the population demands it, I would hope that it doesn't become a reality, because that like goes backwards.
So I hear you. I think the piece is like, the more clients you can get on Relay, the more likely you can convert them to the new way of life.
Yeah.
I think that would be the counter. And so if assuming that's successful, and maybe I'm just being entirely self-serving, which I might be, and Ian says, I agree with Justin, don't want checks.
I'm telling you, like,
yeah.
I have a 65-year-old client who works with his hands. He's an artisan, and he does his own bill pay to Relay. I couldn't get him to work with any other system. We've tried, like, he's worked with us for like 2 or 3 other systems, and he uses Relay all the time. I constantly see the emails going through, transferred funds to pay. And it's the coolest thing in the world. It's the coolest thing in the world. I'm telling you, it does it. If he can do it, anyone can do it.
That's way good. And then I think we have one last question. Scott Sharp asked, give a pro-con such limitations list for traditional banks versus Relay that we can share with clients and have as a reference. We should have that. So we'll make that happen, and we'll share that with folks. Cool. I think that is all the questions. Thank you everyone for spending time with us. Justin, thank you for sharing your story.
Likewise.
This was really fun.
It was.
All right. Cool. Oh, do we have one more question?
No, it's a thank you.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. Love it. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
And let's call it a day. Happy Wednesday. Have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. All right. Bye-bye.